I've heard your feedback, and I promise not to make too many jokes about the best human appendage. Also, even though it's arguably the best card in 30th Celebration, I promise this video won't entirely be focused on Mew EX. Because surprisingly, there's actually a footful of new additions that help out several old decks. But yeah, I'm gonna start with Mew, so bust out the lotion since this section will last a long time. For the past 2 months, I've talked about how Mew EX really only fits into a Mega deck. But like when Star Wars subverted expectations and didn't make Finn a Jedi despite showing him holding a lightsaber in the trailer, I'm gonna start with Beedrill EX. Building the list isn't complicated. You simply take the number 1 Beedrill deck with the Dunsparce on Limitless, remove 1 card, and add Mew. That's it. I opted to take out a Grass Energy and go down to 5 since you're probably only attacking 3 times, but it could be any of your search cards as well. I don't recommend having a sparse number of Dunsparce though, since you will notice that draw support is lower than my pants while watching a For the Win video. What Mew brings to the deck is a way to use Rumbling Bees while not exposing a Beedrill. Memory Helix copies the attack of any Pokemon on your bench, you just need the appropriate energy. So where attacking with Rumbling Bees before meant risking an entire stage 2 line you'd then have to recover, Mew is just a single Pokemon. So being able to loop 220 or 330 or even the fabled 440 damage attacks is much easier. The obvious downside of Mew is the 160 hit points. But if you're playing a matchup where you aren't expecting Beedrill to survive anyway, Mew is an immense help. Though not necessarily against Dragapult where Beedrill can one-shot it for 1 energy with 3 bees down anyway. As for the ace spec, Unfair Stamp is number 1 since it can be found with a Ciphermaniac plus the Dunsparce. Max Rod's definitely still a huge number 2 as recovery is super important here. Okay, to kick off the Mega builds, let's start with Manectric. While it did receive Voltaic Lightning Energy to deal up to 340 damage with Riotous Blasting or 220 with Flash Ray, Mega Lucario and Terra Greninja are still massive problems hitting you for weakness. Well, get the Uno reverse card ready because Mew EX can copy Riotous Blasting, not discard any energy, and one-shot Lucario. Or if you're feeling spicy, you can put both Manectric in play, letting Mew choose if it wants to be immune to damage from basics or evolutions. Just be aware that Voltaic doesn't boost Mew's damage since it's not a lightning type. And just like Beedrill, Mew's not necessarily necessary against Dragapult since Riotous Blasting can deal up to 330 damage before modifiers. For this list, and most lists adding the 151st Pokemon, you merely take out your least useful card and add Mew. For Manectric, it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves with 30th Celebration and then Delta Rain. Mega Ray and Talonflame are both weak to Lightning, which is awesome, and Mega Lucario might disappear because of Mew. All I know for sure is that Kilowattrel drawing you up to 6 every turn and Mega Electros picking off weak targets makes Manectric a threat again. Just don't be afraid to play with yourself alone at night as Heroescape or Unfair Stamp or Legacy Energy or Prime Catcher are all valid A-specs. And a 2-2 Kilowattrel line as opposed to a 1-1 prevents any prizing shenanigans. Along with Manectric, I think one of the strongest uses for Mew will be in a Mega Frostlass Starmie deck. They both attack for a single water and have access to Wally's Compassion for healing. And against Metal or Lightning decks, Mew becomes a great backup attacker. That being said, I think low punny Frostlass is better. While spreading damage counters like their cheeks with Starmie is fun, Mew's low HP means a lot of decks can use Monkey Dory to punish your weak EX. Between Frostlass and low punny, you're dealing at least 230 damage, which is likely taking KOs every turn and leaving no counters in play. This is where you can start with that version. Enriching Energy with Wally's Compassion is a hilarious combo, letting you heal and draw 4 every turn. But with Mew in the mix, you aren't planning on Wallying quite as much. Lucian is a way to force them up to 6 cards in hand for Mega Frostlass to deal 300 damage, while freely retreating Mew into the Dunsparce allows you to reuse Mega Lopunny's 230 damage attack. I just hate that you basically need to shoehorn Clefairy in to hit Dragapult for weakness. And because why not, here's Mew with Mega Starmie and Frostlass. Again, I think Mew's too flimsy to work with a spread deck. This also highlights how Mew's greatest feature of being able to one-shot Dragapult in any deck yet still requiring Clefairy is more annoying than getting traded to Haunter holding an Everstone. There is an art to choosing which Mega should be paired with Mew EX. I'm totally not just pulling them out of my butt. Because Mew requires the correct energy, one cannot simply stick it in and hope for the best. It's a terrible Misty's target, so for Alligator's out. Obama Snow, meanwhile, doesn't want Mew when Kyogre exists. But what about somebody like Mega Gardevoir? Being able to copy Overflowing Wishes or Mega Symphonia means you don't have to worry about Guardy taking a hit. And with access to Telepathic Energy plus free retreat, starting Mew means you can easily get a Smoochum and Ralts down turn 1. Ability Immunity Deoxys is in the list for Festival Lead, while everything else is here to either draw you cards or accelerate energy. Ultimately, there's nothing terribly special here. Except of course being able to overwhelm Dragapult early then still lose because they'll hit Unfair Stamp, Double Crushing Hammer, and Crispin right after you take a KO. Speaking of Gardevoir, is this finally the time for Mega Delayed to shine? It's the Hannah Montana of type coverage, hitting for Psychic and Fighting weakness. If it's Dragapult, go after the Dragon with Mew, ensuring you don't prematurely put it into play. That's because Gale Slash only does 200 damage if you're untouched, like everyone who plays Pokemon cards in real life. Things do get difficult against anyone not weak to Mew or delayed, but with enough Wallies, you could tank for a few turns. And if you're worried about one Mew getting hit early by a Badoo or something, well, that's why there's two. Or just run Scoop Up Cyclone as your ace spec. For more ideas, Mew does allow for more one-of attackers since it can copy anybody on your bench. For basic Mega specifically, don't forget that Prism Energy exists. Add in something like Matang or Emboar or even good old Crispin, and you can choose between, well, surprisingly there's only 13 basic Megas in Standard, so the options are somewhat limited. But being able to use the Mega itself, or copy Starmie's Sonic Ripper, or Mawil's Gobble Down, or Kangaskhan Rapid Fire combo while only exposing a 2-prizer is pretty cool. Hell, you can even put Mew and Mega Lucario itself, something more forbidden than Exodia. This gives you a leg up in the mirror match. Plus, Mega Zygarde's nullifying Zero becomes a potential fun game-ending attack. Because loading up a Mew with multiple energy means they have to pick between taking out your 2-prizer who could wipe their entire board, or a 3-prizer that's also a major threat. Sticking with the whole Prism Energy theme, while Evolve Mega Evolutions can't use it, Mew can. So you can put 1/1-lines of Mega's Lucario, Camerupt, Lopunny, Frostlass, and Starmie into a deck together and have access to all their attacks with a 2-prizer. I don't actually recommend that, but it is possible. Overall, it's kind of exciting heading into a new format with so many unknowns. Well, there's actually just one unknown, but Mew EX has the potential to flip the entire game on its head, bare feet dangling in the air. Or it could flop harder than a Magikarp on dry land, with Dragapult players realizing that Monkey Dory plus Dusknoir equals an easy 2 prizes. Whatever happens, I've tried to show off the Mew list that I think are the best, but feel free to give everyone your best or even worst ideas in the comments. When Cacturne is out in Delta Rain this November, you could maybe make a deck with Prism Energy alongside Moltres, Stunfisk, and maybe a decent basic fighting type like Hawlucha. For now though, the deck most improved by Illumise's existence is Rotom Tools. By having Illumise in play at the same time as Volbeat, weakness is now X3 the last stand instead of X2 X-Men United. As a result, you can Volbeat them off really hard, hitting for ×3 weaknesses with a Lightning, Psychic, Water, Grass, or Fire type. By doing some handy-dandy math, I can tell you that with Gadget Show dealing 30 damage times the number of tools you have in play, only 4 are required to deal 360 damage thanks to super effective pheromones. Before we get to all that, you first want to go first. Illumise has 80 hit points, putting it out of Poffin range, but Volbeat has a Call for Family attack that benches 2 basics even if it's turn 1. So you can easily find Illumise or Shaman or Fez or whichever Rotom is best suited for the matchup. Additionally, the Psychic Rotom can bench all the Rotom except Rotom EX and Fan Rotom, who are useless here. Doubling tools means nothing thanks to Illumise, and there's no hitting for colorless weakness. Well, technically there is with a Rangaroo, but we don't talk about that. From there, it's about finding the best tools. One benefit to the Pokemon Company for getting to give us good cards is I didn't have to stress my brain too much. There's only 35 tools to choose from, and most of them suck. For the top 3, Counter Gain allows each Rotom to attack for 1 energy if you're losing, Brave Bangle boosts damage, and Air Balloon gives retreats. The Ace spec is a little trickier. Again, you realistically only need 4 tools in play at a time, and there's 11 total in the list. So drawing into them naturally is likely, making Treasure Tracker mostly redundant. Unfair Stamp's much better, though you could make a case for Legacy Energy. Maximum Belt is probably a skip since it's only 20 more damage than Brave Bangle. Also, I guess Amulet of Cope exists, but Dragapult would just Jamming Tower you every time. A couple other tool options are Lucky Helmet for card draw and Lily's Pearl. You have to run Lily's Clefairy to give dragons a weakness anyway, so why not reduce the prize cards it gives up by 1? Okay, with access to 5 different Rotom, these are the main Pokemon you can hit for ×3 weakness, one-shotting them with just 4 tools in play. Yeah, it's basically everybody meaningful except Mega Venusaur. So it's everybody meaningful. It would be great if Blaziken EX didn't exist so you could cut Water Rotom, but I guess somebody crazy might also be running Ceruledge EX, making it necessary. Remembering that you always want to go first, here's the new and improved Rotom deck. My old nemesis Totsadiri makes an appearance to never find a supporter, but if you're running multiple Air Balloon, you may as well sue She how it goes. Along with bench space being a potential issue, single prize decks are almost an auto loss. Shaman's your only hope against Slowking, and Festival Lead, well, you could play the Chi-Yu that stops them from using a stadium, but it's not foolproof. Otherwise, just hope you don't face a deck weak to Fighting or Metal or Darkness and show everyone why weakness is the most broken mechanic in the entire Pokemon TCG. Now we come to the portion of the video where you add a single card to an existing deck and call it a day, just like when you phone Charlie Day to ask what he thinks about Pokemon chickening out and not calling this fight milk. For a single water, 30th Celebration Greninja EX does 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon times the number of damage counters on it. There's a few ways to go about this utilizing 2 of the other 3 Greninja in Standard. The easiest is with Mega Greninja. Mortal Shuriken 6 damage counters to somebody, Surfing Beach your retreat into 30th Celebration Greninja and deal 180 damage to it. Anything with 240 or less hit points is knocked out, meaning not even a Raging Bolt is safe on the bench. Otherwise, there's Terra Greninja. Grand Tree lets you pick and choose which Greninja you evolve into, with the Terra able to find any card for a single water. Mirage Barrage does require an Ignition Energy, but that's a spread of 120 to 2 different targets, which can either KO weak things or soften up hard things. Feel like blasting instead? Add Dusclops and Dusknoir for even more mass shenanigans. And it's not as if you have to play a straight Greninja deck. Baby Frostlass can spread damage counters while Mega Starmie hits the bench. Find some space for Monkey Dory and no one's safe except stupid Dragapult because it has a freaking built-in bench barrier no ability. Realistically, all you do with 30th Celebration Greninja is add a single copy to your existing Greninja deck and call it a day. This list pairs it with Dragapult, though you could swap that line out for the Dunsparce. I'll be sure to build several different lists for my eventual gameplay video, so stay tuned. Elsewhere, assuming Mega Lucario isn't squashed by Mew EX like my head between a Medichamp's thighs, the new Baby Lucario definitely helps. For 2 fighting and a colorless, or a sphere does 100 to their active and 60 to someone on the bench. Meowth is outright KO'd, while you only have to drink a little bit of Gatorade to deal with Fezandipiti. That 60 bonus damage, meanwhile, can help soften up a bigger target like Mega Excadrill or KO something weak like Budew if they don't have Shaman. And that's literally all there is to say. Just Aura Jab some energy to a Riolu as soon as you can, then evolve into whichever Lucario fits the situation. I will add that Baby Lucario's time could be cut short, and not just by Mew. Delta Rain in November adds this Groudon, who deals 270 damage for 3 energy if a Legendary Stadium is down. Lava Lake is seeing a ton of usage with Lucario in Japan, giving you a Grass-weak attacker who can take huge backshots. Over here, Lucario with the Dunsparce has been gaining some attention ahead of Worlds. I do think you want a little more discard to get energy in the bin early, but plug a Baby Lucario in here and you're good to go. Over in Japan, Delta Rain Giratina is being included in 69% of winning Slowking lists, making it immune from damage multiple turns in a row. The more time I've spent thinking about it though, I don't think Espeon will have quite the same lost impact. Kyurem's Trifrost already takes care of Festivalite and Dracloak and Kadabra, which has led everyone to running Shaman. Where Espeon can help is against evolved EXs that aren't Terras. For example, deal 110 damage to 3 different Zoroark, then follow it up with a Miraculous Shine, devolving all their Pokemon. Even if they have a Monkey Dory, you're still taking 3 prizes. The same principle scanner also applies to Greninja, Beedrill, Meganium, and more. I omitted Mega Lucario since that's weak to Psychic and gets destroyed regardless. And Garchomp runs Power Weight, keeping Gabite out of range even after a de-evolution. I think my main issue with Espeon is that Slowking has better options. Sure, the scenario I laid out gives you 3 prizes. But it takes 2 turns. In those 2 turns, you could have taken 4 prizes with back-to-back Metagross attacks of 300 damage. And Annihilate can take 3 prizes on a Mega at any point. So this is a case of foot lotion. This is also a case of having to try Espeon to see if it works, since I can't sneak a peek at Japanese results. The list isn't anything special. I looked at a Giratina version from Japan, then swapped it for Espeon. I will say I'm a fan of the 3 Boomerang energy and the addition of Baby Zeraora, who snipes 210 damage to an EX at the cost of discarding all energy. And Prime Catcher over Secret Box as the Ace spec makes picking your targets easier. Additionally, Unknown can help Slowking. One nice thing about going this route is that unlike Kyurem, if you start it, it can still attack. Then you can make them pay, taking an extra prize with a KO. Remember that Unknown has access to Wondrous Patch and Telepathic Energy, so a turn 1 attack on a Budew is possible. Or you can attach Telepathic to it, get Latias, and retreat into Smoochum. Lillie's Clefairy also means Unknown can one-shot a Dreepy early for 2 prizes, broadening your horizons past babies. Plus a stray Applin becomes 2 free prizes too. Outside of those 4 cards though, I'm not sure if Unknown helps enough. Kyurem's Trifrost dealing 110 damage doesn't really set anybody up aside from Delmise, except you'd much rather just Trifrost twice in that matchup. Regardless of what I believe, only time will tell if Slowking needs to head into the Unknown. There's probably a little more you could do to the list rather than just swapping out Espeon for Unknown like I did, but I got lazy partially because I'm not excited for this next section. I've dreaded it and I've tried to run from it, but Dragapult is inevitable. Both Unknown and Espeon from 30th Celebration have a place in Dragapult. And I guess so too does MEWEX, but for right now it's all about the former two. Both are fairly similar in terms of strategy, and I'm not exactly sure they actually improved the deck that's ruled standard for 2 years. Still, for Espeon it's simple. The 50 hit point Eevee can evolve immediately with Crispin or Blaziken powering it up. Then surprise them with a de-evolution at the end of a game, potentially wiping their entire board after perfectly spreading damage counters. Now, Dragapult doesn't have to take early knockouts to win, and saying that out loud hurts my soul. Yes, if your opponent knows how to do math, they can do a full board wipe against Festivally, taking all 6 prizes at once, and there's no way to stop them. Miraculous Shine could also be useful in the mirror match. Dracloak only has 90 hit points. Between Monkey Dory and Phantom Dive Pings, the best part of the deck's in range. It's also terrifying for Excadrill and Alakazam players who now have to worry about you removing all their Drillbur or Beldum or Abra or Kadabra at the same time. Yes, they get to put the evolutions back into their hand, but they're useless without the basics. And because you can save Espeon until the end of a game, prizing shouldn't be too much of an issue. I think the Blaziken build makes the most sense to adapt here. It increases your chances of powering up Espeon late while still having access to Monkey Dory and Phantom Dive. I barely changed the list to make room, and you could even chance removing a bosses since dusting isn't as important. Dust Noir is another way to take advantage of both Espeon and Unknown. I think I just value the energy over giving up prizes even if it does make math less messy. So I stuck with Blaziken again for the Unknown build. Again, Unknown obliterates babies with Mysterious Signal, taking 2 prizes against Badoo, Smoochum, and Delta Rain Azurill. Add in Clefairy and you could KO their Badoo turn 1 for 2 prizes, then follow it up with a Dracloak KO for 2 more thanks to Risky Ruins getting you frisky. If you're wondering how Unknown can attack turn 1 going second, it's not easy and does require some luck. Most likely Itchy Pollen will still be your go-to, but read Crispin again. You don't have to attach the Fire or Darkness energy you also grab with its effect. If there's a Psychic energy already in hand, you can attach that instead. Once again, the uncertainty of 30th Celebration shines through like the sun hitting your toes through a hole in your Crocs. If Unknown with Dragapult does end up making the deck better, I doubt this will be its final form. A third Monkey Dory or a third Crispin might be stronger, removing Dawn entirely to boost your first turn. But I can already feel myself getting ill after talking about Dragapult this long, so I'll end it here. As much as I know this won't work properly, I'll finish myself off with Lugia. In an alternate universe, Lugia with the Cantonian Birds is a deck. After all, they each accelerate their types of energy to themselves from hand, and Lugia deals 250 damage for Fire, Lightning, and Water. But there aren't enough energy switches in the world to make this feasible. So instead, you have to build a terrible deck. Get it? Because there's Terras in it? Anyway, Lugia is a colorless Pokemon. Glass Trumpet accelerates energy to colorless types if you have a Terra in play. Pair it with Flareon and Crispin plus the Terra Eevee, you can do the thing. Problem is, to make room for Lugia, you have to remove Lillie's Clefairy, which is pretty much your only way of dealing with Dragapult and Lucario. The deck tops out at 280 damage without it, so I'm not sure if it can survive. Of course, there's other ways of getting energy onto Lugia. Glass Trumpet's still the best, but Mega Oddno exists. And End's Plan can take energy from the bench and move it to the active. It's just that while Lugia can deal 280 damage with a Brave Bangle, Elemental Blast requires you to discard 3 types of energy. So for as strong as Lugia can be, it might end up being a random one of in Glass Trumpet heavy decks, of which there aren't many. For a couple rapid fire ideas, you could put 30th Celebration Groudon in Mega Lucario or even a deck with Barbaracle. But we already have better basic fighting types who deal big damage yet don't require 5 energy. My Galarian Meowth take has definitely cooled off recently. I just don't see you putting a copy in Alakazam when Toucannon exists. And while Meowth would make sense as an early attacker in Excadrill, getting it in the active turn 1 seems unlikely. Lastly, Zekrom could be useful when Mega Rayquaza is out in Delta Rain, dealing 160 lightning damage if it has a fire energy attached. Give it a Prism, clause fulfilled. Then pair it with Metang or Emboar or Crispin and Counter Gain and you're good to go. Reshiram, meanwhile, is only amazing with a Brave Bangle, because without it, Mega Excadrill and Venusaur are surviving. Still, definitely keep these 2 in mind when building decks with a lot of energy acceleration. Alright, between my 3 30th Celebration deck preview videos, I think that's everything. If I missed anything or if you have any crazy ideas for lists, put them in the comments. Because this is the first time in history where we're on even footing with Japan, and I want to make sure we're properly lotioned up before getting down to business.